Auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello there. Welcome, my fellow warmers of the globe, to another installment of Canned Conversation. My name is Andrew, and with me, as always, my good friend Steven.
What's up?
Tell me, my friend, how does it feel to be nearing your completion of 47 trips around the sun?
It feels good. I'm gonna go with good. I've been sick this week, but other than that, I feel good about it. I feel
Okay.
like I'm in a positive place after 46 and 9/10 trips around the sun, or 11/12.
Awesome. We're going to call this your birthday episode, right? Because
Sweet.
it's when by the time will be just days around the corner. So I did get you a little something. I got you the most universal gift I could think of.
Oh, good.
Something you've probably always wanted. And that's $1 million.
That is all I wanted. $1 million.
Now, I didn't have the room for that amount of cash.
Yeah,
so
this is just as good.
Yeah.
Can I scratch this off as we go, and we'll see if I'm a millionaire? You want me to save it for later?
You do whatever you want. But you got to go to the lottery commission once you've won your $1 million in the form of this scratch off ticket.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that, that is, what you get once you've
scratched it, they give you $1 million.
Yes.
It's just a 1-for-1 kind of deal.
Right.
That is awesome.
They're going to take some taxes, I think.
Yeah, I would expect them to. So here, this is to $650,000
Yes.
after taxes.
Yes. Enjoy it. I hope
this
you
is
do.
probably the nicest gift I've ever gotten. If it is actually $650,000 after taxes.
Awesome.
Nice. I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
All right. As the name of our show suggests, one of us brings a new, unique, or rare canned beverage to try. And while we tickle our tonsils with its contents, we're going to do our very best to delight you with our wittiest of banter. Today's topic is the Earth and green and all that goes along with that.
Yep.
So later in the show, we'll review and rate the canned beverage we're trying and let you know if you should try it while hosting your next Game of Thrones prequel viewing party.
Wow.
I think it's actually called House of the Dragon.
Okay.
I'm sure you're hyped.
I would probably need to have watched all of the Game of Thrones first, correct? Before you watch the prequel? Or maybe this is a good place to start.
This is a prequel.
Yeah, so
right?
it's probably a good place to start.
Right. For those who haven't watched Game of Thrones, if you watch this whole thing,
You should be prepped.
You should be ready for the one that came beforehand.
Right, good. Well, then I'll just wait for that to come out.
Yeah, and they can't say it like ages poorly because it all takes place in a different world, number one, and it kind of emulates like medieval times. So
all right.
there's just no like cell phones or flip phones. It's good. It stands the test of time.
Sure. Netflix people.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring in the can here, and to get us started, let's play this.
And I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
The walk-up music.
Yeah, right?
All right. So you brought the concoction today, my friend. Tell me what it is we're trying.
I did. It's called Unmute Yourself. When I saw the can, I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it feels like it's kind of podcast themed. We've kind of unmuted ourselves in the last year and talked about all kinds of weird stuff. So I thought just in general, there's a podcast theme to it because there's a giant microphone with, the whole mute button that everybody's familiar with Zoom or whatever video conferencing tool you use. Teams, whatever.
Slack.
Yeah. It's a Four Hands brewery concoction, and it's a lager with grains of paradise. And and I didn't read the grapefruit part, or I may have pulled back a little bit. It has some grapefruit zest to it. I know you're not a huge grapefruit guy, but it is what it is, right? So it's Unmute Yourself. I think it's a cool can. It's a black can. I don't know. It was dope.
Matte finish.
It is. It's cool.
Brewed and canned by Four Hands, but it says a collaboration with 9 PBS.
Yeah, Channel 9 PBS.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
So yes, the local public broadcast system.
Yeah.
And
4.5% alcohol
There
by
it is.
volume, 16 Florida ounces on this bad boy. So it's a bigger can.
that's what everybody was waiting for.
Yep, the old Florida ounces.
How many Florida ounces and
I can't
how
believe
much alcohol?
I can't believe how much the Florida ounces has caught on. So people ask me about Florida ounces all the time about this podcast. They're like, we're listening, and they're like, I had a big Florida ounce beverage the other day, and I'm like, oh, it really
Nice,
caught on. Like,
nice.
it's awesome.
I wish
So-
I could take credit for that, but that was completely a Reddit thing.
I know it.
That was actually asked. We believe it was asked in all seriousness, and it turns out to have become quite the meme, as the kids may say.
The old Mimi.
Yeah, the meme.
Nice.
All right.
So
Well, tell us about green.
Well, the beer actually inspired the topic as well. So I have a couple. You and I both have beverages in our refrigerator that are queued up, ready for the show, right? And trying to pick out the right beverage for the right topic. I watched a documentary,
Cool.
which is how
Nice.
things like this start. Usually, is somebody triggers a thought in my head, and we've done this a couple times. We did it with Heel. I watched a documentary, and it spurred a whole bunch of discussion or thoughts in my head. So I watched this one, and it was called Planet of the Humans. It's a guy who is super hippie, and he's like, I've been hippie and I've been green since like 6 years old, and here's all the stuff I did. And I'm not going to chronologically go through it, a lot of it, but the premise of it is that all these things that people are thinking are green, he walks through them and says, here's why they're not. They're not green or they're not sustainable, even though people are saying it. And he goes to things like the Earth Day celebration, where we've got congressmen and people up on stage going, this whole thing's run out of solar. And he walks behind the stage and there's a diesel generator right there. And he's like, they've got 7 solar panels. That doesn't even probably get the cash register moving, right? Like they don't have. So he talks about in detail. So again, Planet of the Humans, if you ever want to watch a hippie guy walk through and kind of deep, and he really wants things to be sustainable. He really wants things to be like, so he has some answers at the end, but, and I won't give that away. But when it got to the end of this and he went through solar, he went through,
Do you want to take one at a time here? And
yeah. So I want to know where
I'm interested. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about. First, I wanted to go with where are you at with like going green, recycling, and I want to do like electric cars, and do I want to put solar panels on my house, and do I want to hook myself? I know where your wife is on wind turbines, so I know you're not going to do that. But like, where are you at with this green movement that's going?
Yeah, I love some of it. Others, I think, I may agree with this gentleman, but I don't know if I have all the supporting facts to back it up. I want to think that I'm an early adopter, not because it's cool to be an early adopter. It was way more out of convenience for me. But one of the first things I did, and this was probably 10, almost 20, it's probably 20 years now, I wanted to go completely paperless. Digital hard drives were,
Right.
able to hold a lot of information. And so I didn't want any paper. I was one, and I don't know if that's completely going green, but I ask now, and I have for a long time, if someone's like, hey, do you want a receipt? I'm like, can you email it? For a bigger purchase, for little things that you go to, 7-Eleven or the corner market, a lot of people probably go, don't need a receipt. But I mean, for something you might want to return, I'm like, hey, can you send that to me in PDF or send it to me in email? And then that way I can store it digitally. I hate paper. I got rid of my filing cabinet.
You hated paper from almost as early on. Like when you could stop getting paper, you're like, I'm opting out.
Yes, and I tried to take all the steps. If you go online and look to see how you can stop getting junk mail, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's so much paper.
It's just waste.
That's just wasted.
Yep.
And I tried really hard to do that, but the people that want you to get junk mail try way harder.
Yeah, they have more people working on it than
Yes.
one guy. You have one person working on trying to stop getting it. They've got 1,000 working on how to get it to you.
Right. Then the second thing is, I think, and this to a lesser extent, same kind of theory, is got away from all physical media of stuff like DVDs and VHSs, all like anything I could digitize, I did. I don't want all of these CDs around because it's just landfill, right? Eventually, right? The amount of CDs that people had, I'm sure, Now they are very thin. You can stack them pretty well.
Yeah,
but you know.
I feel like yours is more clutter focused than it is green focused.
Again,
You're like, I just don't want stuff around.
But I saw that as I'm like, this is a good
added
byproduct.
benefit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then when recycling hit, where I could put it in my trash can, but put it in a different bag, I did that. I adopted it and bought a trash can that had two sides to it. It's probably nothing, right? It's probably super small, and I have read articles where it's like, they can't get a lot of that out for whatever reason,
Right. Like half the stuff you try to recycle goes in the landfill anyway, or whatever that is. Yeah.
But now I don't own an electric car yet. I think they're really cool. Do I think that'll solve the world's problems? You're probably going to get to that.
Yeah.
I haven't put solar on my house. Wouldn't mind it. I've seen a couple houses in my neighborhood that have, and I've worked with a person that put some solar panels on, and then they have an energy box that goes back to
It'll feed power back into the grid,
and they actually get money off their electric bill for that, which I think is really cool. And like I have no qualms about putting something on my roof as long as it doesn't degrade over time, and like I have to replace, like it's costing me a larger cost than say
during the day they put money back, they put power back in the grid, and during the night when there's no sun they pull power off the grid, right? I mean, basically is the trade-off they're doing. Yeah. So
I feel like I've not to the probably level of the people that are very extreme about it.
Right.
I don't have a pit in the back where I put my refuse for, what is that when you call that when you put everything like your banana peels and all that stuff.
Oh, composting?
Yeah, I don't compost.
Yeah.
I put my trash in the trash can and then have.
Sorry, I went a different direction with refuse, and I was thinking like, what are you like an outhouse? No. Okay, sorry. Like all your table scrap stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people that compost. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I'd say I don't even know. I mean, do you know about what the average person does? So like, if I said what I just did, is that like average?
I think that's probably. I think that's probably a little above average. I think some people recycle because if it's convenient and doesn't cost them too much more. I think there's a wave of people getting into electric cars. That's still not the majority yet, though. There's a very small percentage that do solar panels. I think that's growing a little. Wind turbines, whole different ball game. I know.
Hard to put one of those in your yard, but
it is. The neighbors get ticked, and like the HOA is like, "Hey, you can't have a 400-foot wind turbine in your backyard. It's hitting the neighbor's fence." Like, but yeah. So, I'm going to take these one by one. Let me tell you the general theory of
where
this
are you
guy.
at?
So so I am probably less than you. I don't like getting receipts for everything, and I throw a bunch of stuff away. We do recycle because my wife makes us, and I probably wouldn't if she didn't. So maybe I'm way less than you. I don't know. I feel like I've seen too many news things that just say, "Oh, all your recycling is going to the dumpster," and I'm like, "Oh, screw it."
You do all this work to put it into two separate bins,
separating stuff out, and putting it in two different trash cans, and taking two different trash cans out to the street, and then all of a sudden they're like, they just dump it into one truck, and you're like, "Come on!"
Right?
Yeah. So I don't think I'm there. I'm not even looking at electric cars, but I'm not that I don't think they're neat. I do think they're neat. I don't think they've got to a place where they're as economical as I want them to be. They go as far as you want. Like, you're not worried about getting to charging stations and that kind of stuff. So, but not that they're bad. I think you can go. I think there's some anxiety around being able to only have certain places that you can. Like, it's not like a gas station. You have to go to a certain place to get supercharged if you got a Tesla, right? Or because you plan a road trip and you've got to make sure that you have the right stops at the right places. But I think the software inside of Tesla does all that for you, right? Like, it tells you where the next supercharger station is, and like, all that's cool. It's cool technology. Don't get me wrong. And that was not his point. And when I watched this, and so what I took from it was, he's like, hey, people are excited about X. And he started talking through these things. People got excited about solar panels. Great. Solar panels. Let's talk about them. And he just go through it. And he's like, here's why they're not green. He's like, do you know what solar panels are made of? Yeah. So
glass.
And people go, it's sand. And that's what solar panel companies will tell you. It's made of silica, sand, and sand's readily available.
Is it all glass made out of sand?
It's not, because it's not pure enough in that form to actually make the solar panel itself. So they have to use coal and limestone. Is that what it is? Coal and an aggregate of something. But basically, so it's still, all those solar panels are made with coal. As you burn the coal hot enough, it burns off all the carbon, creates like it mixes together with the lime and whatever it is, and that's what makes the base of that solar panel. It may not be limestone. Somebody's gonna correct me. If you do, if you know the right answer, it's some sort of rock. Just I'm not a geologist. And so he walks down through some of these, and he's like, well, so solar panels, it takes currently, let's call it 6 tons of coal to power a household for a year right now. It takes 1 ton of coal to produce enough solar panels to power that same house for a year.
Okay. So
You with me there? That's not, that's
so-
one, that's one
so
sixth.
far that sounds good.
It does.
That's a positive.
The problem is it's only when you have daytime. You don't have daytime all the time, right? Like, so
Wait a minute. Hold on. I don't have daytime all the time.
you don't have, unless you're in that one.
You're assuming I don't live in like the Antarctic?
Yes,
Or,
and that's only part of the year. Right?
yes, that's half the year, right?
He's like, yeah, you have to have backups. So
Do they have sun continuously on the equator? Is that how that
no,
works?
it's just 12 and 12, man.
Oh.
But it's nice
right.
to have 12 and 12s down there. But that's why they have grapefruits and all that other stuff down there. But yeah, so
But they're hurting when it comes to solar because they can never have enough.
Right.
They have to they need more solar panels to store energy, right?
so they need more batteries to store energy.
Batteries, yes.
And what the problem with, so that was his catch is, so you now need
Item 2.
lithium, you need graphite, you need silica, you need all the things that go into batteries, which all has to be mined. So to produce the amount of solar panels you'd need, you now are in a crazy mining operation, which also runs off of gasoline, fossil fuels, right? All of those trucks and equipment, and you're digging up the earth to get all this stuff. It's like, so that's not scalable. We're never going to get there. His basic point is that you can't get there with enough solar panels because then you have to have enough battery backups to be able to do that, unless you have diesel backups, which is also fossil fuel, right? So it's like the backup process for when you don't have sun, you have to have something.
Makes sense. Long enough cords to have a buddy on the other side of
Right.
the hemisphere.
So, yeah,
like down in Australia.
You could just drill straight through to somebody who's on the exact opposite
Right.
side, and you just share
we
sunlight.
share.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a large cord that goes to Australia.
Yeah.
And then they power me during their daytime.
Yeah.
And I power them.
During their nighttime.
ours. I mean, that sounds like problem solved.
I don't think he even talked about that. Why didn't he talk about that?
I don't know.
While we're drilling.
Right.
So he talked about solar and how it's not super green, and it's got a pretty big carbon footprint to produce.
So does that parlay into, because a lot of what I've heard, and hopefully this maybe was talked about in the documentary that you watched, was that the battery technology as it improves, right? Because obviously in first generation of anything, it's not your best product.
They will
right?
become more efficient and use
Yes.
better resources, higher quality stuff with lower amounts of mining and that kind of thing needed. We'll talk about that. Don't worry, we're gonna get
nice.
there. We're gonna talk
loving
through.
it.
We're gonna talk through some stuff, then rate this beer, and then we're gonna come back to where I ended up with this.
Okay.
And then we'll have a whole different discussion.
So,
that all
but
right?
that's a good question that I asked. Maybe is the technology
It is. So
as it improves, maybe start.
So
go.
that's where I was as well. So you were exactly the same place I was. I'm like, well, technology is going to get better, and as we get better with technology, it will be cheaper to make solar panels. We'll find better ways of doing it. We'll use less coal. We'll use less resources from the ground. We will be able to scale that manufacturing differently in some way, shape, or form that makes it more economical and also makes it more green. That's where my head was. I think that's where your head's at too.
Honestly, if I were guessing where your head was at, I would have thought you would have said aliens were going to land and give us information as to how to be green.
I think aliens landing and giving us information about how to be green is more likely than what happens at the end of this.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Which is more likely too, that you get $1 million from your birthday or that aliens give us the key to being green?
more likely is aliens still.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a toss. Maybe a toss up.
All right.
Okay. So he went through wind power, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. But he went through wind power, and he's like, so wind power. So when you think of wind, you think of the giant turbines. He goes, the lifespan of a giant turbine is 20 years. It has to be replaced after 20 years.
Okay. Or when they catch on fire and they make the news, it's probably less than that. I've seen a few of those, at least one recently where they showed the one that was on fire. That's a big fire. Don't want to be around that.
Well, and they make an obnoxious amount of noise. Did you know that?
I knew that there were a couple of drawbacks. When you put them out in a field pretty far away from people, it's kind of what you want to do. I also know that they killed eagles.
Yeah, the birds hit them. I mean, I don't know how you can't see them and avoid them, but
you would think
it's a giant propeller they run into.
and it's not just one.
No,
There's
it's
a
a lot.
field of them. So you would think
You can avoid the whole 40 acres of those things if you were a smart bird.
you would think, but that's one thing I've heard, and maybe that's from the people trying. Maybe that's from big oil. And putting out little like, oh, do you want to save the eagles, which stands for America? Because you're killing American bald eagles, which is your freedom, baby. That's what you're killing.
Right. So
Is that happening? No.
No. I don't know. Maybe, but but there's an environmental hazard to them, just in general.
And the noise?
There's a huge noise
Okay.
issue with them. But the bigger thing is they cost a lot to maintain.
I'm sure.
They cost a lot to build, and you have to replace them every 20 years, and they're expensive. And they're made from steel. Steel's made from coal. Just plain simple. Everything ties back to a coal industry that can't go away, but everybody's like, let's shut this thing down. When you hear on the news, we're all going green. We're going to kill the coal industry. You can't. That coal industry funds or facilitates basically almost all of the green industries. It facilitates all of your wind power, all of your solar power, and all of your backups for your batteries and stuff. I mean, it's just electric cars. They run on coal-fired plants. That's how you charge them at night, is through your coal-fired plant, electric plants, right? Like your electric Tesla is not green and off the grid. It is using a coal-fired energy plant to power it. Plain and simple. It may be using less or whatever the case may be.
So
but
we've shifted over to a little bit of the Tesla, because I had a question. Now, I almost didn't want to pass this opportunity up to say, if they only last 20 years, I have the fix for that. Sign them up for American Home Shield home insurance.
right, they should get that because they call all the time.
And they will never actually replace the thing in full. They will make it work. They will put pieces.
They will Band-Aid that thing
They will
together
Band-Aid it
forever.
It seems to me like an easy fix there. So moving to the cars.
Oh yeah, they should insure them because once you've bought insurance on it, they probably won't ever break ever, right? Like that's what happens when I buy any sort of insurance on a technology.
Yeah,
that I like.
right.
I'm go buy an iPad. Well, they're like, you want the insurance? If I say no, that thing's gone in 3 months.
And you're like, now it's broke. I need a new one. They're like, I can replace this and this, and it'll work fine.
Yeah.
And then call me again next year
with tape and a toothpick.
So on the car thing, and you talked about when you plug that in and it requires, the energy of your house, which is coming from a different source if you're not solar powered. But even if you are, we've now garnered that is also going to ultimately be a fossil fuel. But someone told me that if everyone were to get an electric car tomorrow, our power grid would actually fail.
I'm certain it would. He doesn't talk too much about it. He does talk about the power grid. I mean, Texas was worried last week on the news that they go, we went from really cool to a really hot stretch, and they go, we're not going to have enough power on the grid. It's going to fail. But like when everybody flips their air conditioner on at once, we're going to have badness happen, right? Like they set a record for how much energy that state used in one day because of how hot it was.
I'm sure it was like 110 down there. I work with a bunch of people down, and they like to tell you,
right?
How
and
hot
so
it is.
Our power grid's pretty fragile that way anyway, that it can't take those big variations. The other thing behind solar and some of this other stuff is that you have to have this constant in your power grid to be able to supply everything that people need when they need it. And so there's these big fluctuations that you have to be able to account for. So spinning up something like coal is easy. Wind turbine or a solar panel, if it's dark, you can't just spin up another solar panel. You can kick up another diesel generator. You can kick up another coal plant, right? Or you can fire up another generator in a coal plant, but you can't do that with a solar panel. So that was kind of the fluctuation that you have to adapt to with that, as much power as we consume. We consume a lot of power. Like we have everything's plugs in, right? I mean, all of our technology runs off electricity. So it's a weird place that we're in technology wise.
Other than normal toilets, which some people say is
yours
the greatest.
Plugs in.
It does. I will, and that's why I said normal.
Yep.
But your average toilet is like, I've heard, is like the greatest technology invention that doesn't require, because it just uses the laws of physics.
Yeah, just
and
water pressure and gravity.
Yeah, you can flush all day long as if your electricity goes out.
The only thing that works when the power goes out.
Yes.
So I won't bore you with all the rest of it. He went through biomass, which I wasn't even familiar with. Do you know what biomass is?
Well, last time I went to the doctor,
You had a biomass.
I was like, Doc, I need to ask about this. No, I believe, if I have heard correctly, right? There's farms of this, like in water, they will breed. Is it algae and some other things, plant based?
So that's more biofuels.
Okay.
That's them producing algae that they can then turn into some sort of fuel. Biomass is that they said, well, we're going to replace coal-fired plants we're going to burn trees. Green trees, we can burn biologic material.
Okay.
Anything like the scrap from cornfields or those
Makes
kind of
sense.
things, we can just burn that and that will be better. And the guy's like, okay, here's the deal.
I have some neighbors that try to do that all the time.
Right, they're biomass farmers.
I didn't know that's what they were doing. I just thought that they were trying to get rid of their trash and make it smell really crazy around here. But okay.
And he's like, hey, it's still burning stuff. When you burn things, it puts bad stuff in the air, carbon monoxide and junk in the air. But he said the problem is with biomass, everybody keeps talking about we're going to go away from coal and get to biomass. He goes, if we burned every tree in the United States, it would power the United States for 1 year. You can't, it's just you can't get there from here. Like you can't farm biomass to a point that it would scale to where we are with coal or with any nuclear or any of the rest of the stuff, right? So
Understood.
So he went through biomass. He went through a little bit of biofuel stuff. At the end of it, I'm going to leave it at let's review a can. But at the end of it, I was like, where are we going with this? Because I thought this guy was going to be like this green energy guy. And at the end of it, he's debunked almost every piece of green energy that I knew about and some that I didn't even know about. Right. And I'm like
biomass?
Yeah, biomass. He was like, this is crap.
For now, maybe. But again, I think one of the things that, that the humans are trying to do.
Because you're here as an alien, and now you're making fun of me. Because I knew
that's why I try to debunk your alien theories all the time, because I'm like, he's getting too close.
I'm on to you.
But I think, one of the things that humans are good at is throwing a ton of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then there are industries that spin up around maybe 5 things that sort of work, right? And so like we have how many energy types of sources, right, going right now? We have a lot.
A lot.
And if there's a general consensus, and maybe this is what you're going to get to after we rate the beer, so tell me if I'm stepping on your toes, is that the thing that I think if we work towards is just a mind shift to be working in that direction of we need to make this continuously better. And it's not perfect right now. It's not even sustainable if we come off fossil fuels or coal or natural gas, right? Like the things that we could run out of, then sure. We can't just sustain this over here, which is the status quo. But if we're all working towards this, we'll just keep getting better and better. And after 2 generations, we're going to be way farther down the road, and it might be improvement at some point. Yes, no, maybe so.
So
we'll all be dead by then.
So
global warming.
It's interesting that you went there because the end of this is basically his statement was technology got us into this problem. It can't get us out.
Oh, so we have to, okay.
The more technology we put into this, everything gets us farther down a road that we can't get out of, and that the Industrial Revolution is what started this, and that we got into a place in the Industrial Revolution and we can't get out of it. His point was, you can spend as much money as you want on green energy. It's not getting us any closer to being green, saving a planet, staving off global warming, climate change, all that stuff. That ain't it. You can't get there from here. And I'm like, oh my God. So let's rate a beer.
Should have been called Doomsday.
It should have been called, While the Rest of Us Die, episode 28, which is what we talked about. So
don't have children.
Anyway,
it's pointless.
But he was like, people living off the grid, people not using resources is what gets you there. And so,
that's the hippy dippy side.
So that's where he went, and I'm like, I did not see it coming. I thought he was be like, at the end of this, he'd be like, here's the answer: is we need to do it this way. And he was like, this is not working. What do you think?
All right. Well, what do you think?
So
we usually start with with the one who brought.
So I'm happy with this Four Hands brew. I like it. I don't taste tons of grapefruit zest in it. There's a little. It does have a good flavor though. I dig the flavor of it. I can drink a bunch of these, at least some of these. I'm gonna go with a 4. It's a 4 for me. I like the flavor. It's a lager, so it's easy. It's an easy drink for me. It's not like it's an IPA or something where I have to go tough through it and try to get to a 3. But yeah, I dig it. It's kind of a good full flavor beer, and there's a note of citrus in it, so that kind of is a Blue Moony or whatever. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So if I had to start, I would say when it hits my tongue.
Oh, geez.
As the aroma, I feel the aroma in my nostrils, and then it gently glides over my tongue, and it's a nice lighter lager, but not too light. There's definitely flavor there. We like Four Hands. I think we've had now a number of Four Hands.
Yep.
In fact, we just had that 1220 Spirits, which is a Four Hands subsidiary, I think. We're not sponsored by them.
But we should be.
Definitely, because we've done a lot of theirs.
We have.
I would say this is probably my favorite of the Four Hands that we've had. I completely agree. So the Grains of Paradise, I think that's when it goes down the throat. I'm feeling
the Paradise?
I'm feeling the Grains of Paradise, and then it does finish with
little zest,
with
right?
with the citrus, but. I think they could have used almost any citrus. I don't feel...
It's not grapefruity.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just citrusy.
The ones that I haven't liked are the ones I'm like, man, that tastes
it's like licking a grapefruit. Yeah.
And it's tart. Mm-hmm. And my lips want to pucker, where this is very muted, which,
I dig
it's
it, though.
unmute yourself, but it's a muted grapefruit.
Yeah.
So I think they put that citrus in there, which is good for a beer to have that kind of lighter finish. So I think, I want to say I'm going to go with a 3. I'm going to go with a 3.
Okay.
Because I do feel like I would drink these for sure if they're around or if we had them.
That's not bad. 3's good.
Yeah. I'm trying to talk myself into would I get more of these. One of the things, but the can sometimes does play a part. I love this can with the unmute yourself and the fact that it's collaboration with PBS. I don't know if some of I'm sure some of these proceeds are potentially going to the public broadcast system, but I'll stick with a 3. And enjoy the rest of this can and any more that find their way
into your
to
world.
Me. Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I went with a 4. You went with a 3. Good beer. If you see it in the store, pick it up. It's
and 3 is positive because
yeah.
I definitely don't want that to be a negative, right? It's a positive. It's a good beer. I think the citrusy piece of it. I don't always drink the citrusy beers that finish like that, but I do like them here and there. On a boat, in a moat, we've done that one several times. All right.
So, all right. So here's the scoop. So we're gonna get back into where I ended up with this thing.
We're all doomed. That's where I think we left off.
Yes. So he mentioned something in there, and he talked a little bit about it, and it was technology is not going to get us out of the problem. And he basically said it's a population control problem. So,
that doesn't sound good.
With that
sounds
said,
like he's going in a direction of.
I'm going to read you something. I want your take on this little statement. Okay.
Population control is never a good word.
It's a population density and a population increase problem. So here's the statement. You ready?
Yeah. Hit me.
So a tremendous change occurred with the Industrial Revolution, whereas it has taken all of humanity in history until 1800 to get the world's population to 1 billion people.
1 bill.
1 bill.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
The second billion was achieved in 130 years.
Right.
At 1930. The third billion was achieved in 30 years in 1960. The fourth billion, 15 years in 1974. And the fifth billion in 13 years. So.
And we're at 8. Now.
We are at 7.947 something billion people in the world right now.
I know.
So at the end of all of his like I thought there was going to be something great that came out of this, that I'm like, I'm watching earthy, healthy stuff and it's going to tell me I should be more green. It was crazy that he ended with, we have a population problem. Plain and simple, you can't technology out of how fast we are. So if we tried to address our needs now and just stopped growing, we would have trouble. But we don't stop growing. Every year, every 5 years, we're adding 1 billion people that consume more power, that need more food, that need more energy, that need all this stuff. You can't, we're outgrowing the planet so quickly. It's ridiculous. And so here, I'm handing you this, and I will, if anybody loves to watch this
charts.
yeah. Oh,
We're
wait, it's
really
upside
geeking
down.
out. I love it.
I super geeked out this time. And so there's a lovely chart that shows you what our world population has looked like over time. And it actually calls out a couple things that are pretty entertaining. One of which, so if you look down at the bottom, it's probably in tiny little print. In the 14th century, the Black Death pandemic killed between 1.25 of all the people in Europe. You can see that little blip on the bottom, right? But then it shows you just the line that goes from the start of man all the way to the Industrial Revolution, and then just goes. It's
a cliff.
It just goes straight up. I mean, like literally, the last 70 years, we just go. If we continue to go straight up like that, there's no way to not use coal and fossil fuels the way that we do now, and even more than we do now. And you can't get rid of them for sure. And not only that, you'll have to add this other stuff to it just to keep up. He's like, technology can't get you there. Which my head was like the whole time, technology is going to get us out of this. And his answer was, technology is not going to get you out of this. Population control is going to get you out of this. And so now my question to you is, so when you hear, it's in the news right now, we've got stuff going through the government about all this green energy that's been funded by the current administration. They've put forth billions into green energy.
Sure.
And he said, here's all the reasons there's people doing that. And there's always money to be made. Anytime somebody's proposing something, somebody's making a crap ton of money. But what do you do with that? What do you go, we need population control. And we got mad at China because they were like, you can only have one kid. But literally in my head, I'm like, we need a mass plague and population control. So go with that.
All right. I'm going to say first, anytime someone starts talking about population control, I immediately think of like the Nazis and then or fascism. Bad. It's a total bad thing. Then as you were talking, I was like, this is sort of the Men in Black theory where we're just a bunch of cockroaches on this earth and just perpetually growing our species to a point that it's sort of unsustainable. However, this is what I've heard also. I've heard that if you took, like, say, the United States, and you took all the population of the United States and you put them shoulder to shoulder, we would fit in, like, Massachusetts, right? So right now, while it seems like we have a overabundance of people, we don't really. I mean,
in
now,
the U.S., we're third in population.
True. And fun fact, I think I heard this in the last couple of months that India in 1 or 2 years is going to overtake China. So China
they're close now.
For a long time had been, and maybe their rules of one child and all that. China's most of
1.451 billion people.
Most of the other world does not look favorably on what China does.
No, nobody likes it.
Right. Now, is it one of those, the truth hurts, like this is going to hurt? I don't know. That is something that it seems wrong on the surface to go, we're going to population control. Then it's like, well, who decides who gets the babies? Who decides who's worth? That's a bad road to go down, in my opinion. Okay. Not really the solving of this problem.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that's a theory, right? Like it works on paper, but so does like communism, right?
Right.
But it doesn't work in real life, right? Like it just doesn't.
It's not optimal for humans.
Yes.
Right? Like as a person, as a living being, it sucks. When you look at it on paper, you could make that work. You can make
Theoretically.
population, like you could make getting licenses before you have a kid work on paper. Doesn't work in real life.
I'm not against that
I'm
necessarily.
100% for that if that ever comes up as a bill.
You got to pass a test.
You should have to pass a test and get a license just like you do a driver.
So, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of and if you're looking, are you looking for what do I think is going to be the ultimate maybe resolve of this?
So
I touched on it a little.
So so when you think of what the U.S. is doing, that's one piece.
True.
Right.
True.
So, but when you think of what can I impact when I know that China has 1.45 billion people,
Right.
India has 1.40 billion people,
But growing fast.
they're growing very quickly, and we are third with 335 million. Like
I thought we were at like 750, but it doesn't.
no, like I went. This is real. It was counting
Real time.
as I pulled it today.
Oh, okay. Man, I thought we were higher than that.
We should be, but we're not.
Okay.
We could be using more resources, I guess. Indonesia's next at 379 million, and then Pakistan's fifth at 230 million. So those 5 countries, like we're third, and by a lot. Like the gap. India
True,
and China are growing way faster and way more issues around that than we are, and they're just developing. So they're like some of that is developing countries. Their infrastructure, their needs, as they get more technology, they're still earlier in the life cycle of technology than we are in a lot of cases, right? Like we've put in infrastructure, we have better infrastructure, we have more, all these things. They're not there yet. So they're going to consume all of that.
China and India?
They'll have to. How do they?
I
how do
don't
they
know what their
become-
infrastructure looks like. I mean, like China nowadays, I feel like other than like out in the
sticks of China.
although out in the sticks of our country, we have less, right?
That's
We're always
true.
trying to catch up the most like
That's
some
right.
of the rural areas. I think of China as on par with a lot of the technology and like a lot of infrastructure stuff, but I could be wrong. When I think of it, my theory is that nature will help adopt a green policy. Humans, I don't think on their own necessarily will. I think things will, as the earth is changing and as, humans are going to have to adapt. And one of the byproducts, we're going to do one of two things. We're going to adapt to be more green because whatever nature's throwing at us, like, because there are things that are happening right now, right, because of the changes and stuff. But say all of a sudden certain parts of the area become infertile because they have so much pollution, or they have the temperature isn't such that, and I don't know about global, like we're not getting too deep into that, but say whether you think it's man-made or not, if global warming is a thing, then maybe certain parts of the population can't even reproduce, or because it's so overloaded, then their water isn't, doesn't allow for healthy conditions to reproduce.
The earth is going to take itself back.
I do.
Is like
That's the one.
Like Ice Age it.
Yep.
And go,
For sure.
it's a whiteboard. We need to wipe this thing clean.
Yeah.
Give it a couple thousand years and we'll start this whole process over again and kind of cleanse itself.
Yeah, I mean, just the law of averages says that something's going to happen like that anyway. Look what happened to the dinosaurs. They didn't overpopulate to our level.
I like that theory.
And they got toasted to where they're now birds. Or that's one.
Okay.
One is nature's going to force it on us.
Nature's
and
going
it's
to erase the
happening.
whiteboard and start over.
We hate it, but it's happening. Number two, we leave. We start
Offboarding onto
exporting,
somewhere else.
right? And which we're already starting to do.
Which is,
we're trying to get to Mars, get to, look. There's scientists that, I mean, how many times do you hear like, what are Earth-like planets, right? Like those planets out there that can sustain life. I mean, that's good in theory. That's like science fiction-y kind of things. But people are, there's a reason that we're kind of infatuated with that to go, hey, we could it's a Garden of Eden out there. It doesn't. It's not all polluted and stuff.
I believe in this thing that I watched. I think he at some point alludes to there's a reason why rich people are now using their wealth to figure out how to get out of here. right? Like he's like, they're going to spend some money and they're going to want to not pay for all of it. So they're trying to include the public in it and go, yeah, it's a tourism business. No, it's not. It's to get me the hell out of this planet.
Right.
To find someplace I can go live. And my future generations can go live.
Yeah. I completely... I buy into it. And what's weird is, it's going to take us a while to do that. So
But then
we're going to have...
will there be alien spacecrafts here on Earth then? because we will have gone to somewhere else to ship people. So we will be that craft.
We will be aliens on another planet.
Okay. So then aliens will exist on some other planet.
True. Yes.
Okay.
And it's
I'm just
us.
trying to make sure.
We already are. Sort of, because we're on Mars, right? We're rovered there.
Our robots are there. Yeah.
But see, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, I think that other civilizations would be smart to do the same to us. So if a robot from space showed up that wasn't ours, I'm pretty sure people would go, aliens are now visiting Earth. Even if it wasn't a organic carbon-based form like we know it.
Okay.
Right? I mean, if all of a sudden this crazy big robot showed up and it came down, would you go, that's alien? Right?
Yeah, it's 100% aliens.
Yeah, so we're already on Mars in the same way.
So aliens exist and their crafts have been here. Sure.
No, wait.
I got it on. It's on tape. It's fine. Cool. So I think we're on the same page there. So I like your theories. I wasn't sure where I ended up with it, which is why I brought it here, because I'm like, at the end of this, I did enough research to go, okay, the guy's he's not blowing smoke. And the population growth charts are just crazy. When you look at world population growth charts, just go out and Google world population growth chart. It's alarming. And you say you look at it, it is industrial revolution. The second we started consuming fossil fuels and being able to build and spread is what started it. And it just goes straight up, and like billions of people straight up.
But what's interesting, and when you throw that out there, I understand it, right? Because it goes, if you go, India has 1.4 billion people. Mm-hmm. And in your head, you go, holy crap, like that's so much to wrap your head around. And you think, I'm in a place with this many people, but look at the size of India, look at the size of China. You go, I can drive outside of really big metropolitan areas and hit places that are reminiscent of rural Illinois, rural Missouri, rural Kansas.
I think his point was that it's not, can you find open space? You can't produce food and you can't produce energy efficiently you can't produce green energy and food at the rate the population is growing. So when they go, let's switch over to solar, let's switch over to wind.
Right.
It's less efficient than coal and diesel and biofuels or coal, diesel and crude oil. Like you're saying, let's switch to something that's less efficient and grow at the rate we're growing. And you can't get there from here. Like literally cannot get there.
Agree. So here's what's interesting. So I think as a case study for at least in our country, we should be looking at Texas, because Texas has a terrible power grid, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same as the rest of the country. It's kind of its own thing, right? If I understand it, I know that's real nebulous, right?
Somebody from Texas. If we had a Texas listener, they'd probably write in and tell us you're wrong.
It's not. Well, I mean, it's not.
It's bad though.
It's not set up the way like
everything else is.
Right.
Yep.
Where we live and where most people in
the
the country live, they are on their own variation of a power system.
Yep.
And it is not. It's good, right?
Not sustainable, not been maintained.
And look what happened. So this year you talked about, the heat of one day. Well, do you remember when they had the ice storm and all these people went out of power? The one senator guy goes to he
went to Cuba or Caribbean.
Because he's like, I'm out of here. I'm not living in this.
He is by far my least favorite politician that's ever existed in the world.
Right. I didn't name his name.
Ted. I'm calling you out, man. You're the slimiest man on earth. I literally, you're on a crew. You're in a plane with like a Hawaiian shirt on your way to Cancun while the rest of the people in Texas are dying.
Right. Just an ice storm, right? Like and everybody's
a flood.
The flood
in
happened
Houston that just wiped power out for months. Like people are like, I haven't had power for weeks.
Right.
I'm like,
they're like,
Lord.
we're in a third world country here.
Yeah.
This is, how are we living in a place that can have no power this long? And I agree with it. So it's like, what are they going to do? Because they have, that problem almost, in that they have a bad power system that cannot supply the right amount of power to the amount of people that are requesting it. So, they have to adapt. We all have to adapt.
So what I hear you saying, here's the experiment we should run. Texas, you're now an experiment.
Yes.
Can you run on pure wind turbines? and then California, you're another experiment. Both of you could fall off the map and we'll be okay. You're like, hey, Texas is jacked up anyway.
In green though, I don't think any one is the right. Go green. Try to get off something. Say we're going to get off coal because they have rivers, right? Hydroelectric is great.
Yeah, but damming up rivers is not an answer either. We didn't talk about it. It's on my list. We didn't talk about it, but like we've dammed up a lot of rivers.
Sometimes you don't even have to dam them though, to necessarily, right? Like there's these newfangled things that they can. I've only seen like YouTube videos or whatever, but
For
it's
ones
like
that you camp
waves.
with?
There's like things that they're putting in the ocean that just catches wave power.
Yeah. That's cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it doesn't like jack up the whole.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it doesn't jack up the whole ecosystem. I don't know, but I'm just saying things like water power, things like solar power, things like wind power. There are powers to be now. If you put them all together, if you just had to rely on one, you might fail. But like, what if we tried to just make that all green? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to go Texas, go green as a thing.
Right.
Get off your current power.
Right. So so you're at Texas, go green. I'm at world, control your population.
Unpopular opinion.
I can't help it. So if you have thoughts on that one, it's you can get straight to Andrew at canconversations@gmail.com. But still, so I that's where I ended up with it. I was like, I'm not sure where I'm at with this. It seems really horrible to be on that position to go. People need to check themselves and stop having kids. Like not just us in the U.S., everyone in the entire world stop having kids, or wait for another global pandemic that's way worse than COVID that actually like black plagues it and like wipes out people and gets the energy consumption level and the growth level down to allow you the time to get to a place that the green energy makes more sense.
So did they talk about nuclear at all? Because we didn't talk about it here.
We didn't.
But I feel like that it became a bad word because of some bad things. I watched a documentary on 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, some bad crap can happen.
I watched that whole Chernobyl thing on HBO.
I did too.
Fantastic.
That was crazy.
Documentary, right? But
that was insane.
I was trying to think. I think there was one the Japan one that got hit by the tsunami. There is a documentary on that one, but it's more to do with the heroicism of the people that went back to turn it down. But my point is, what I think I've heard about that energy is that while yes, there is waste, that the amount of waste compared to how much energy you can output, is unbelievable. So like if we could, but right now no one's built a plant since like 1978.
It's been a while. My understanding though is from a guy I talked to this weekend, he's like, I'm interested in, they have micro nuclear reactors and they are like, that would power your car. So he's like, there's that technology out there that they haven't gotten very as far as they need to get with, but like something like that where you go, it's contained. It's not like a Chernobyl will happen if it gets, so maybe there's something there because that seems so much more, and I hate to say this, but that sounds so much more reasonable than going, I'm going to put 400 solar panels on my house and hope that I get enough sunlight through the day to charge a lithium battery that you mined from Cuba or South America somewhere.
Yeah, or like, everybody only have one kid.
Right. Or everybody only have no kids for a whole generation. Just stop having kids.
Well, that'll stop.
We'll just have a pause.
Can't pause at all, or we'd all be gone.
8 billion people.
Yeah, but if you stop a whole generation, that's a whole generation not having kids. But look at the submarines.
They go forever. They can go forever.
Yeah, talk about micronuclear.
So it's a micronuclear.
Yeah. Yeah, but that technology exists, right? On a submarine level, and I'm sure it costs a lot.
Right.
But put some work into it.
I think there's more in that than all the other crap that they're dealing with now with
I agree.
solar and wind. Biomass, stop building plants that you just throw green trees into. Like that seems, and there's people out there promoting it like their entire college is biomass fueled. And they're like, we just keep chucking raw trees into this burner. And they're like, we're burning park benches, we're getting scrap lumber, whatever treated lumber that has all the arsenic in it, the old treated lumber. And they're like, whatever you got, we'll just throw it in this
lead paint. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Burn it. Anyway, so there's got to be something else there. I like So I'm glad you brought it up. The nuclear one, I had this conversation this weekend about this micronuclear thing, and I think that's probably my only hope other than population
I
control.
just think it has such a bad name. That's the problem with it. Like, and to your point of, and well, I said this earlier, it's not going to be one thing. I don't think it's going to be solar that saves us. I don't think it's going to be wind power that saves us, or nuclear necessarily. But all of them combined that are better and keep progressing, getting better as the technology progresses. Solar is going to get better.
Guys, telling you, technology can't get you out of there.
Used to be that but I disagree. So I disagree on the face of it, just from what you've told me. I disagree that technology won't get us there, because now if you really do believe in aliens, how did they survive it? Right?
So,
like technology, they have enough technology to get here from a planet that is light years away.
Maybe they're not as bad at consuming what they have as natural resources. Maybe they're better at using them.
I guess.
I'm just saying,
we'll never know. Right?
This is why I brought it here, because I ended up with population control, and I'm like, this guy specifically said Andrew will be wrong, and I'm like, when he was like, technology can't get you out of this. I'm like, I bet you Andrew doesn't think technology can't get you out of this.
I agree. I think technology can. I think we are an amazing species. Look at what's in our pocket now. You talk about these, like this population graph. How long in here did we have a computer in our pocket? Or camera in our pocket?
It's just the straight vertical line, only like a third of that.
Yeah, just a super small portion
chunk of the straight vertical
line. And how much of this did we go to the moon? And how much of this did we have television and satellite and navigation? And you can travel anywhere in the world within like 12, 18 hours, probably 18, because it takes a long time to get to Australia.
It does.
But I mean, the amount of advances that we've made to be able to do things that people in this timeline did not think were even feasible. Like if you talk to a person here and you told them that you could fly above the earth, and I'm pointing, I know you can't see
Nobody
this.
can see this.
Unless you're watching
horrible podcast.
watching on YouTube.
Watch us on YouTube.
Then at 6,000 BC, a person in that were on the other side having the same conversations. Like, we're never going to fly. Somebody go like a bird. That's impossible. That's crazy. That's never going to happen.
So the very fine print at the bottom of this says, so the global life expectancy before 1800 was less than 30 years. The global life expectancy in 2019 was 73 years. So we went from 30 years was as long as you were going to be on this earth and consuming natural resources, to now you are on the earth consuming natural resources for 73 years.
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
And now there are, in an 1800, there was like, what, 7 of us? I don't know. There's like tons. Like let's call it 500 million. Now there's almost 8 billion people consuming things for 3 times longer than they did in 1800. Yeah, that's crazy.
But my point that you totally skipped over was that those people had zero idea of the technology that would be available. Even 200 years ago, people wouldn't have thought about where we're at.
Fine. So I'm going to say population control. You're going to say technology, and we're both going to be wrong.
True. Although I think if people in the future listen to this, we'll probably be both right in a certain respect. There'll be a bit of all of it, except for population control. That's just Nazism.
I'm just saying. I don't think it's self-enforced population control. I think you need a global pandemic to wipe people out.
I said that, and I agree with that. I think the Earth will force upon us.
That's your nature.
Yes.
Nature will wipe the whiteboard clean and let you start over. Cool.
All right.
So that's where we are. So
we kicked this one just enough. Or?
I feel like we kicked it enough.
All right. I agree. I loved it. It was a great conversation.
Well, good.
I hope everyone out there enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, you can find all of our information about socials in the description of this if you're listening to it in whatever podcast format you're listening to. Hopefully you check out the YouTube stuff, because we're going live on YouTube now, and you can watch us and interact with us live. So
yeah. Well,
cool.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks
you.
We hate to see you go, but we love to watch you leaf. Get it? Like a tree has leaves? Green? All right, bye now.